It's locked out. Yeah, you said Coventry.
Oh, we got a lot of people on already.
Here's a familiar face.
Hello, hello.
Something happening, I'd say.
Where are we?
It's like a program.
Yep.
There's a few early birds.
Good night, Peter.
I've just got to get my sound working.
Can you hear us, Peter?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
Good.
Yep, we can hear you now. Yep.
Just trying to connect my AirPods at the moment, so you get a little bit better sound. They're not behaving. Now I think they might be connected.
You're probably been, I guess.
When people are talking.
Right. That's better.
Brendan.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, Dale.
My internet's running a bit slow tonight too, so not good.
Oh, I love it.
So how many we got? 12 people on board at the moment. I see Brendan Cow and Joe Mikowski, but I guess Tom
That stopped
Lockley.
me being built, or
I don't know.
yep, has.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go down, Tom Lockley won't have you on later.
Daniel on.
Hello there.
Daniel A. He's got his mic turned off though.
Is it? Can I sniff as his aeroplane?
I'll just wait for a few more people to come on and I'll just show you a couple of things when we get to someone else just joined us. When it comes in past, I'll show you a few of the features that you can use with this bit of software. Mark Dowsett has joined us. Someone else has joined us.
Yeah.
So we got 15 on board at the moment. You can all see me okay? You can see me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Yep, good.
That's all right.
Right.
David Seddon has joined us. We've got 17 online now, 18. Always early.
Peter?
Yeah. How you going, Daniel?
It's not bad.
Oh. It's a keyboard.
Nice wraparound model.
Ergonomic.
John Furlonger has joined us. Andrew, that might be Andrew from Townsville, perhaps.
That's right, Peter. Andrew from Townsville.
G'day, from Townsville. Andrew Chadwick. Squadron leader Andrew Drix, what I say.
That's okay. I'm very good with just Andrew. Thanks.
Your boss might be on tonight too.
Yeah, I was hoping. And Martin also. Martin, I used to work together on Carrot.
Yeah.
Oh, guys, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, Martin James is on. By the way, everyone, Martin is the RAAF historian in Canberra. So he's joined us. And Andrew is in charge of the Garbutt Heritage Centre at the RAF Care Centre out of Garbutt. Dion. How many we got now? We got 20. We got 23 people on board now.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I can hear you. There's Mary.
Yes. Hi, Bear.
G'day, how are you?
Good.
It's all right. You have the mask on, Mary.
I should put it back on, shouldn't I?
I thought you were going to do that again tonight.
Yeah, I can. I've got it right here. So that's what I'll do. Okay, I'm ready now.
Bad breath.
Yeah,
That's a bit extreme.
yeah, I was thinking of wearing one and putting my hard hat on. So
That's right.
I decided not to.
You cheeky buggers.
G'day, Bob. Righto, so we got 5 on board now. It's coming close to 10 past. It's 10 past. I'll just show you some of the features of the software. It's 27 online now. I see some people are using the chat feature. Found that already. Dion.
Hello. What's we got? David nice in yet? Filthy?
Trevor Potter.
There's a
Trevor
familiar
Potter's
face.
on.
Hi, Peter. Robert's
G'day.
been working.
G'day, how are you?
Good, good, good.
Hi, Peter.
Hey, Drummond, how you going? So there's 36 on now. You can see that background behind me. I don't have a green screen, but this software lets you take a green screen. I just designed that little bit of image behind me yesterday. But you can change that to whatever you like. I'll just give you a couple examples of what else it could look like. Or it could be on the beach, maybe.
Like you've got COVID-19, mate. You're coming across extremely croakingly.
Am I? Yeah, my
Yes.
internet's running a bit slow tonight.
Well, yeah, I think they all will. Everybody's on it.
Shouldn't have shut the border down.
Yeah.
I think you're supposed to have 5G on your computers or iPads or whatever, but someone just told me that someone's saying that's why we have the virus, because of the 5G.
5G is not available in my
It's
area.
immune to the virus.
The NBN's not even available in my area.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't cross over the border. That's probably why the pixels are going around. Stops at the border.
Okay.
Good evening, gentlemen.
G'day.
Hello, Eric.
Hi.
So there's 40 people online at the moment.
40.
What I might do is mute you all for a brief while. If you can't hear, put your hand up if you can't hear me, but I'll just so I get rid of some of the background noise. So I'll be muted. Righto, so I've just muted you all. Can you? Okay. Can you hear me? Nod. Put your hand up. Yep. Okay, good. Righto, so what I can do with is change a lot of things. I can share screens, and I'll do that with the presentation a little bit later on, but I'll just show you a few other things. You can present a whiteboard to people and, you know, draw things or write things, use all these features up top here so that you can share information with people, make a drawing or whatever. What else can we share? I'll connect to me. We'll see if it works. I'll connect to my my mobile phone, hopefully. Where are we? Share. Chat mirroring. Peter's IAC. Okay, you should be able to see my iPhone now. And that's my iPhone. Someone's texted me. If I go to photos, show it on the bloody computer screen. You can see my photos. There's grandson today in Melbourne doing his schoolwork at home. There's our cat in his box, out a cardboard box. So what else can I? What I'll do is I'll go to camera, and so I've now got the camera on my iPhone. Go this way, sorry. So you can see my setup here. I've got two big screens. And I can show you my security cameras out the back. That's our back door there at the back. So anything that's on my phone, I can show you. So I'll get out of that now, stop share. And if I wanted to, I could share anything that's open on my desktop. So I'll go to Google Earth and I'll share that screen. So this is actually Townsville. What you can see here is Townsville. All these markers here are markers that I've created for Townsville. There's Garbutt Airfield, as you can see there. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is all centred around here. The grammar school in Townsville, where 3 Fighter Sector headquarters was based in 1942. But as you can see, there were many, many other places around Townsville that were used by the military during World War II. I've got markers all over the place. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of the bloody things. Thousands, in fact, tens of thousands. The other thing you'll see during my talk, mention of anti-aircraft guns on the Strand in Townsville. For those who know the Strand, there's a little park here that you sort of do a bit of a detour around. That was where all the anti-aircraft guns were, in that park area on the Strand in Townsville. So, and there's Fort Kissing Point there. I'll just try to remember how to unmute you all. Hang on.
I've unmuted myself.
You've unmuted yourself. You're a cheeky bugger.
Oh, we're all unmuted now.
We're all talking.
You're all talking. So,
Has this come as a surprise to you that I'm a cheeky bugger?
No, it doesn't.
I'll finish my coffee now.
From Livingston, by the way. I presume.
Ross Derrick designed, but no picture of him.
How was my audio during that?
It came good at one stage and then went back to crackly as it is now.
Scratchy.
But you could make me out.
Bob's voice was nice and clear then.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's clear.
Sorry.
If all participants hop out of video, that can often increase the quality.
I think we might do that when we start, and I'll mute you all as well. But if something happens, mute yourselves or whatever, and then we'll know. So what else can I show you?
I'm used to
Yeah.
getting muted.
I'll mute you now, Mary. I can record. I can record this session. In fact, I am recording it at the moment. I can record to the cloud, or I can record a hard drive. I'm recording it to my hard. Some of you have already seen the chat feature. There's a chat feature down on my screen. It's down the bottom of the screen that you can go on. You can talk to individuals or talk to everybody. So it's quite good software. So we've got 45 people online now. Someone's got an alarm going.
That was me.
Who's that?
Noel.
Who's me?
Noel Zackling,
No.
Melbourne.
Okay. I don't think there's too much more to show you what you can do. I mean, there are many other features of this video, but of this software, should I say. But I think that's probably for now. It's coming up to 20 past, so I might start the presentation. I might mute you all, and you might want to, as suggested, turn off your videos, your own video cameras, perhaps, which might help with the bandwidth issue. So I've muted you all now. Hopefully, you're all turned off. That's Don Berlonger sending me a message. Yep, thanks, Don. Righto. So what I'll do now is I'll share a screen with my presentation on it. And okay, so you should all now be able to see my PowerPoint presentation. I'll just maximize that screen. For those who've got the video cameras on, if you can't hear me, probably something's going wrong. Start putting your hands everywhere because I can't hear you. So what you got there is a 40mm Bofors gun, putting in what is today Street Park, that little part I showed you on the street in Townsville. Those houses in the background are still there, and that's Castle. So today, my talk, I'm going to talk about 3 fighter sector headquarters. This is a part of the LAF organisation. It was initially at the grammar school and then moved to a very large bunker, which still exists today, out at Stewart, in the Stewart Police Station. Charles has joined us. We've now got 47 participants. We'll talk about radio direction firing or radar and DF stations, the AHSA, how they still fight our aircraft, air raid precaution, anti-aircraft batteries, searchlights, and the 3 Japanese air raids that happened on Townsville during World War II. So this is the model that the RAAF adopted, based on the British model called the ADF system. Nev Allen from Mackay has joined us. So I'll cover all aspects of that. So on the left, so what they do is they get information about aircraft movements over the land from the Volunteer Air Observer Corps and VDC, Volunteer Defence Corps posts. That information goes into the VAA Centre. Movements over the sea from the radars and the direction finding sites, and feed information to the filter room, and that all then goes from those 2 areas in fighter sector operations room at fighter sector headquarters, which in 1942 was at the grammar school in Townsville in North Ward. The other input to the decision making comes from the operational airfields, and signals come in usually by teleprinter from those airfields of the status of the operational aircraft, where they are, and whether they're in the air or whatever. Fighter sector make decisions on info they get, and then raise an air raid alert or whatever. And if they do an air raid alert, they scramble aircraft, notify anti-aircraft batteries, and all those other things that you see down the bottom there. Searchlight batteries, analyses the naval officer in charge, all the ships in the harbour and out in the bay, because there are about up to 30 ships in the bay at any point in time, anchored out there, because the port was already full. What do we got now? We've got 40 people online. So firstly, I'll talk about, you can see right there in red, radiator finding and DF stations. So as I said, the system, who was that? System put is divided into two phases of information, land and the sea. And the information AHSA is detected by radio location. You probably all know this. Radar stations send active pulse to be bounced off the target. So I'm trying to explain the difference between radar and direction finding. Whereas direction finding has an aerial that rotates around and points until it gets the strongest signal on the enemy Morse code, usually at that point in time, and locks and gets an angle, and then they get another reading from another DF station 30 or 40 kilometres away, and then they triangulate those readings to get the position of the enemy aircraft. So I'll talk about some of those stations coming up. So there's a radar station in the General Council area. It's an American SCR 268, probably tied up with one of their anti-aircraft gun sites, or perhaps a SWAT site, because they use those radars to control the guns and to control the raiders. So they can determine the number of aircraft, height, position, and course. Just a bit of an idea of some of the RAAF radar stations that were operating in North Queensland at that point in time. There's 26 radar at Cape Cleveland, operational from mid-August into the war. 104 later became 57 radar, located at Castle Hill for a short while, in Kissing Point. Then a small hill at Dunn Gardens, one of the suburbs in Townsville, from October 3 through to January 45. Dunk Island had a radar operation from the 9th of November. 42.
You might have to mute. You might have to mute again, everybody. There's somebody out there who's probably joined us late who's coughed.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a cough. I've just got to work out how to do that, Bob. Now that I'm on a different screen, I really can't see how to do that. Could the person who was coughing try to mute the audio, please? Would be good. Yeah, I up with a different screen when I do a share, and I can't see where to mute at the moment. That radar is on
Your voice has now come good to us. It was very scratchy. Now it's good.
Okay, thank 28 radar was on Troy Island, sorry, Nance, from October 2. The 6 radar on Hammond Island near Thursday Island from the 20th March to the 27th of August 43. US radars, Company E of 565th Signal Aircraft Warning Battalion, that's the sort of name after their radar units, at CR270 at McClin's Lookout at Paloon on the Tablelands from March 14 to August 93. They were involved in those Japan aircraft from Townsville. The 208th Coastal Artillery Regiment, anti-aircraft, had SCR 268 sets, and later the 107th Coast Artillery anti-aircraft had 6 of those for controlling their searches. Direct finding stations. There's a so this is the air depot, in Townsville. Garbutt Air Base is just up the top here. You can see some of the buildings, and one of the runways is sort of up here. So that's looking north, more or less. And the road to the air depot, the large US air depot, number 2 air depot, or Tower air depot. But this little road here leads into the HFDF, high frequency direction finding station that the AAF had at near Garbutt. And they had other stations at Mongulba, 40 miles from the Townsville, Mingala, out towards Charles Towers, I think that is, and Brandon for triangulation purposes. So the US also had some deviations, and they worked together with one wireless unit of the RAAF. So from the 2nd of August, 42, first operating platoon of the 126th Signal Radio Intelligence Company, who had been in Brisbane initially, set up some DF sites in Townsville, Cairns, Charters Towers and Cloncurry. And as I said, they worked in conjunction with number 1 wireless at RAAF, which initially I had just around the corner from where I used to be in French and Sycamore Streets in Pimlico. And then they moved a little bit later to a large one out where the copper refineries is. I assume the copper refinery is still there. The 126 left Townsville for Brisbane again, returning on the 15th of November 42, and one wireless unit, as I said, moved to a new bunker at Stewart's Creek. One wireless unit was more a field unit for the coders who operated our house at Hamilton. Anyone Henry's where the code break operated in Central Bureau during War II. That's a typical American direct finding antenna. It rates. It's actually taken at Northgate, Brisbane, before that you move to town. So information, those radars and DFs are passed to the filter room at Fighter Sector headquarters at the grammar school. So typically, just got a radar there. That's the radar loomer that you can see at the left. And they have a plotting board. And that plot board at the bottom left is identical to the plotting board in the sector headquarters and identical to the plotting board in the filter room at Fighter Sector headquarters, as you can see in the top right there. So they send their track through to that filter room. So in the filter room, each of the plotters in that, you can see 40 sitting there who do the thing. Each of them are in contact with a radar. So as you might imagine, if there's a flight of aircrafts coming from balls where they came, each of the radar there would pick up these aircraft and they would send a track through to each of the ladies looking after their particular site. So the filter room ends up with 4 tracks. So the idea of the filter room is to filter out that information into one track. So then send in the operations room next door in the sector headquarters. So that's the concept of the filter room. We've still 47 people on board at the moment. So you can see on the document information goes into the operations room. And as I said, Fighter headquarters E40 was in the grammar school. And that photo in the parade, if you like, at the grammar school. So it was established on the 20th of February 42. And by the end of March 42, they had 30 officers, 150 ordinary ranks. These are all AAF personnel. They did people from the American aircrafters, liaison officers, etc., Navy personnel, liaison, and as I said, they moved to Barrett Stewart. So that's, by the way, all of these pictures here, they're not the best quality, but you get the idea, I think. they are from a video or a film, say a training film, that is available on YouTube. Now, I was hoping to show that, but this software doesn't treat videos running that well. Get a bit jerky. But I'll give you a clue on how to find, and for those who are interested, I can send a link at a stage. If you just go to YouTube and do a search for RAA and the word alert, A-L-E-R-T, those two words, find that video. It's a very good video, worth watching, particularly after watching this presentation. So that's the inside of a typical fighter sector operation. Of course, in Brisbane, there was the one fighter sector headquarters. I think, was it one? I think it was one. No, sorry, it was 8. One was in Sydney. 8 fighter sector headquarters in the WD and HO Wills building in Ann Street in the city in Brisbane. So fighter sector used a vertically gridded map, the same as what the radar guys had vertically on the in their site. And all aircraft movements over land and sea plotted. And then they used the same maps were then used also by the fighter pilots on a smaller scale that they carried in the craft. And the controller in the operations room was in radio communications with the fighter aircraft, and the controller directed the fighter aircraft in the interception of the enemy. So in the room, up on a high bench, if you like, overlooking the mapping table, was the operations officer. And you can see the controller on the right, and a lady there who was operating the alert board that I'll show you shortly. There's the controller now on his feet, and there are 3 liaison officers. But before I mention them, there's the fighter sector intelligence officer sitting down at the left, then the volunteer air observer corps liaison officer, the American anti-aircraft liaison officer, and he is American because even though there were Australian anti-aircraft guns, at that point in time, the Americans controlled all the anti-aircraft defence guns in the Townsville area at that time. And then there's a Navy liaison officer as well. So you can see those guys again in the background. Now that table at the front there is called the interception table. So that's where that guy there plots, with assistance obviously, the aircraft's course to make good an interception if it is declared that they are probably enemy aircraft. So they compute that using a course and speed calculator gadget, which I think you can see in the bottom there of that photo. This is the board, blackboard if you like, in the background, showing all sorts of information, some weather information there. You can just see at the top right there, 39 Anthill planes, so that's the 39th American squadron, fighter squadron at Anthill planes at that point in time. And you can just see P-39s just below to the right of the word date. So moving now to the left of this diagram, movements over the land were detected by Volunteer Air Observer Corps and Volunteer Defence Corps posts. So typically the AHSA people could be the local police sergeant, could be the local farmer, the local post office person, anyone they could recruit basically. The Volunteer Defence Corps is the dead army type people who were too old to join the regular army. One of the people who's contacted, there's been many of course, but one of them was Joseph Carter. He was a lighthouse, well, son contacted me. Joseph was a lighthouse keeper at Cape Cleveland, on the other side of Cleveland Bay, from Townsville, sort of over to the east, more or less. He was a volunteer air observer, and they would note the direction, the number of engines the aircraft had, the height, and attempt to identify the aircraft if possible, the aircraft identification leaflets, etc. could then ring the telephone exchange in Townsville and ask for air flash. The operator would then immediately disconnect all the other calls and put them straight through to Volunteer Air Observer Centre on a priority basis. Each of the AHSA spotters had their own code name, and they would start their phone call with the word air flash. So all those messages would then go through to the VAOC through those phone calls, etc. In Townsville, initially, the Volunteer Air Observer Centre was a police station in the city. I've forgotten the name of the street. It's where I got my motor license. And that was formed there 22nd of January too. So here's the operators in the centre receiving the air flashes in the police station, Townsville in the city there. And they had these forms to fill out. And if you look at it, left by it's numbered, were X seen or heard, say seen or heard, division of the aircraft from this, so they give a direction, distance of the aircraft, number 4 direction travelling, the number of aircraft is 5, number of engines, the height, the time seen, etc. So in Port 42, that centre was receiving more than 2 air flash messages per day. Remember, they're upping all aircraft, so Allied aircraft and aircraft. And they had an important role in so helping Allied aircraft in trouble, identifying where they were going, and also helping get rescue people to aircraft that had crashed. They played a very important role in that activity. They moved out of station in the city to a house in North Ward near the beach, and it was at 18 Jewett Street, North Ward. They moved on the 15th of April 1942. So all the information from that AHSA is then fed into the fighter sector operation room, and together with the information on the radars and direction finding, that they work out, whether the aircraft are Allied aircraft or enemy aircraft. As I said, all the airfields are intact with fighter sector. So they mostly use teleprinters, send through the operational status of their aircraft, and knowing that when they get the information from the AHSA centre filter room, from the plots they can say, oh yeah, that looks like that's going to be aircraft. So they worry about it. But if you get a plot and it doesn't up with movements of aircraft, they declare it an enemy aircraft and all hell breaks loose. So as I said, movements from the airfields to the fighter sector headquarters, giving estimated departure and arrival and height to be flown. And you can see a teleprinter there at fighter sector headquarters receiving information, possibly at that point in time for tail planes. There's a role at the fighter sector headquarters called the identification officer, and his role was to determine which facts appearing on the table related to movements of our own aircraft or hostile aircraft. So based on the movements of aircraft that we know through the tender information, can determine whether the plot might be an enemy or our own aircraft. Once they detect that they are absolutely enemy aircraft, they then contact all of the other locations in red. So they notify the fighter squadrons and the anti-aircraft batteries, searchlight batteries. The liaison officers obviously do for them in that room, as well as the naval officer in charge is notified. Intelligence headquarters and the local civilian air precautions organisation is also notified. combined defence quarters. As time go on, 1942, as squadron come and go in the towns where they move up to Port Moresby or wherever, various squadrons allocated to control of fighter sector quarters. So their role is to be on standby, to be scrambled. For example, 35 Fighter Squadron, American Unit 36 of the 8th Fighter Group were allocated 3 fighter sectors to headquarters on the 7th of April 42 through to the 20th of April 42. Everyone hear me okay? For those who've got their mind on still?
Mine is still the same, sort of, like you had a bad throat problem, but it's quite readable.
Readable, that's good. Yeah, as I said, the internet was running slow tonight. So let's just show
Can I just interrupt? Can I interrupt 1 second? Just for other people, if you have an interjection, you can temporarily override the mute with your space bar, like I just did.
Yeah, but don't do it. So, right, that's a photo of A39 aircraft out of their Antil plane, being ready to assemble. Actually, in the video, see them taking off. They've all got their engines. That's the 39th Squadron of the 35th Fighter Group. You know, that's Army Air Force. And here's some AAF Kitty Hawks at Vale Weir Airfield from 76 Squadron, who were assigned to fighter headquarters from 15th of April to the 2nd of July 42. Found this warrantry in the 3 fighter sector headquarters operations record on the 3rd of December 42. There was an entry, no fighter aircraft available. Planes of Survey Squadron have been available since November 16th, but were moved on November 30th. So they actually had nobody to scramble to, repel me aircraft on the 1st of December 1942. This is Hawaii. Lived in Townsville. So there's a Annunciate type panel up behind the controller and those other liaison officers to the left of the flights for the fighter use that are around Townsville at that point in time. We can't see the name currently in that picture. There's a close-up bottom there just showing gets you whether they're standby, whether they've turned off, just turned off, and whether they've been airborne more than 10 minutes. So when they do identify there are enemy aircraft, they possible, they raise a yellow alert message, and he's the bottom right, the American anti-aircraft liaison into his gun operations room at Northwood, who would then know all the gun sites around, so I'm not sure where those gun sites were shortly. So there were 4 alert levels, and yellow was a preliminary caution. Hey, something might be happening, was cancel that. It was action, raise a public grade signal, scram aircraft and whatever. And green was they've nicked off, the raiders have passed. So anti-aircraft defences in Townsville, the 16th Australian Heavy Anti-Aircraft Battery established their first gun site at Paranda, a seaside suburb in Townsville, far from the Garbutt Air Base actually, in January 42. The American 208th Coast Artillery Regiment anti-aircraft arrived by train on the 18th March. Some light anti-aircrafts, which would have been 40-gun Bofors, the 2nd 9th light anti-aircraft arrived by train 20th of April 42. That was the makeup of the 208th Coast Artillery that was in Townsville at the time. So as you can see, the battery A had 15 CN searchlights. They operated with forms. So there's 4 lots of 3-inch gun just over the southern side of Rossa, just on the southern side of that bridge going to the harbour. Some of those gun emplacements, sorry, not their gun emplacements, but the Australians who moved in later, some of their concrete gun emplacements are still there. Well, they were the last time I was in Townsville. Battery C had a gun station at a number of 4 3-inch guns. Battery D had 4-inch guns on the parade ground of my school, at Our Lady's Mount College on Stanton Hill. So we had, I wasn't alive then, of course, but there were 4 3-inch guns and a radar set controlling those guns in our drill grounds. The 2nd Battalion were all 50 caliber machine guns that you can see there. 208 initial gun emplacements were completed 3rd of April 42. The heavy 3-inch guns contained approximately 10,000 sand, so they weren't concrete enclosures, the Yankee ones, they were sort of temporary sandbag. And machine gun sites were mostly dug in, probably with a few sandbags. Could all try to keep you, not for those who haven't unmuted, try to keep voice down a little bit. It's interrupting people hearing what I'm saying. So they were reorganised from 2 battalions, someone's not listening, to 3 battalions. And you can see what the makeup of the guns and the searchlights were. There's an entry here from the 2th Unit Journal. I wish I could work out. Hello. Wish I could work out how to mute people. Because there are some people who are making a lot of noise. Could that person go out of the room and cough? So that we can hear, please. So anyway, entry in the 208th Unit Journal. Yanks, this is the Yanks spotting list. Yanks well received by the native population, in brackets Australians, especially the girls, and soon American slang and dancing and other social customs were in the vogue. I wonder what that means. Weekly dances were held at the AWU Hall in Denham Street, sort of goes up towards Stanton Hill. Yeah.
Nev Allen is the only person whose microphone is active apart from yours.
Oh, okay. Nev, if you can hear me, can you try to unmute or mute your microphone, please? I'll just see if I can find you. I can't find him. Tony Halifax, Charles Page. No, can't find him. Oh, there he is. Hang on, mute. You're right, I've muted.
You've done that.
Right, good. I had to do them individually, but not totally, not everyone at once. Righto, on the 18th of August, the communications section of Wooders Battery, the 208th, started to lay a submarine kilter picnic bay on Magnetic Island because they had searchlight units on the island plus a radar. They also built a 3.4 mile pole line to Arcadia, one of the bays there, and a 2.6 mile tree line, nice and precise, isn't it, to Horseshoe Bay, which is the big bay at the top of the island. And this replaced a very ineffective radio used to communicate with the radar and searchlight units on Magnetic Island. Remained in tactical positions in Townsville till 6th of September, and then they were withdrawn and headed up to Port Moresby. Then the 197th Coast Artillery took over anti-aircraft defence in the Townsville area. There were a number of other American units in the area. I won't go through them. You can see them there. There's a few people leaving us. The first 3-inch gun, that's a picture of the 3-inch gun in Townsville, an American gun of the 8th Coast Artillery. There's one of those guns fired, probably a practice round in Townsville. That's the site on the southern side of Rossville where the Americans were initially. As you can see, they've got sags. That's Castle Hill at the right there. Sort of as to where the photographer was standing, the Australians later built concrete heavy anti-aircraft enclosures after the Yanks moved out. That's a site, a picture, sorry, of the anti-aircraft gun site. 4 guns out at a Noomba paddock there, at a Noomba in 42. They actually fired on 2 Japanese reconnaissance aircraft that flew over Townsville on the 1st of May 1942, which was before the air raids that took place in Townsville in July. I saw this photo some years ago, and I really didn't understand what it was at the time, and it took me a few years to work it out. But it's actually my school ground. You can just see very faintly the harbour in Townsville, that at Cleveland, that's our tuck shop in our school ground. So they've got buffalage netting totally over school ground, and there's a gun there, and I think that's a person sitting there. And somewhere under there or near would be a radar well to control those guns. So that's an aerial shot of that area. So they were all here on our parade ground, and there's that tuck shop building just there. And that photo was sort of looking our way. That school's no longer there. It's been pulled down. And there's the tuck shop and with one of the guns up in the air, the 3 inches. This is what guns at Mount St. John, just to the west of Hubbard Airfield. My wife actually owns Mount St. John now. So he owns the site where this was, plus 4 heavy anti-aircraft guns that Australians built there as well. He's built this big house there. And that's also at Mount St. John, one of the caliber American guns of the 208th Coast Artillery Regiment. This is that regiment, Prun. I think that's in Queensland, not far from a school where the fighter headquarters was, just trying to work out directions. Anyway, right beside the fighter's headquarters. So hill on the background. This is the like breakwater in this area. Well, there's the breakwater at the back, one of the breakwaters, either western breakwater. They were reclaiming some land, and they built these breaks here to reclaim this area here. But as you can see, the 197th American Coast Artillery have got millimetre Bofors there, another one there, another one there, and another one there. And if you look on this picture at the top, that's the area we're talking about. So that gun close to us is there in the other area. The Australian Army, a number of heavy anti-aircraft gun stations. The bottoms are greyed out because it's about 1942. Just thought I'd show what was in 1943. So 42, Paloranda gun station was operational. They had no ammo though in January. They got some not long after that. Mount St. John started March 42. Their headquarters, there wasn't a gun there. There wasn't a gun station there. Had their headquarters at Jimmy's Lookout near the civilian airfield, civilian terminal there, and beside the Belgian Gardens Cemetery. And then the other heavy anti-aircraft gun station was that White Strand Park that I showed you. But later they had a station at Aikenvale, one at Nellie Bay on Magnetic Island, so 4 3.7 guns, and another gun station on the southern side of Ross River that I talked about earlier. Allied aircraft had what called a lane of entry to back into Townsville, so that you didn't get shot basically. So different arrangements required all Allied aircraft to enter Townsville by this specified lane of entry on, I think it was in across Magnetic Island from memory. On the 28th March 1942, both the RAF and the US Army Air Force were reminded of these arrangements by the General Officer Command, Northern Command, because there had been two recent incidents where 16 anti-aircraft battery had opened fire on Allied aircraft who didn't use the lane of entry. Luckily. I've overlaid here a March 1942 aerial photo showing the 4 gun sites, 1, 2, 3, 4, out of Pallaranda. So this is the road to Pallaranda, and underneath that, or where this is now, is a retirement village, which I'll show you on the next slide. So that's what is there today. And if you go for a walk in the bush here, under the trees, you'll find where they bulldozed a lot of the concrete from those heavy anti-aircraft gun positions. That's the gun stations on the Strand, in Strand Park that I mentioned. So this is the Australian Army 395th heavy anti-aircraft troop position. And you can see the harbour in the background with one ship here blowing its smoke. So that's Strand Park, that little park that you drive around on the Strand. This is the gun station that was built 43 in Townsville at Aikenvale. So clearly see the 4 guns and the predictor and command centre in the clear. And then I'll show you what it looks like today on the next slide. It's all housing. That's not far from the baths, what do they call the Kokoda baths? I think it is from memory. So in August 42, the American 3-inch guns were, as I said before, at our school, at Our Lady's Mount, on the southern side of Ross River and Anoomba. And the Australian guns were at Pallaranda, Mount St John and Nellie Bay on the island up here, which is the site. The searchlight missions in Townsville there were some Australian Army ones, but I haven't much info on, but the American searchlight positions were a little light here. The Pallaranda are out near the Bowley River, South St Louisa, just south of the air depot, if you like. Armstrong, which was a large American staging camp near Ross River Airfield, which was World War II airfield, near Anoomba, Strand Park, near North Korea Zinkies today, out at Roseneck, and near the Alligator Creek Meat Works was the American. And then the Americans also had searchlights on the island, Magnetic Island, at West Point, near Bulger Bay, Horseshoe Bay, where they had a radar searchlight here at between Arthur and Arcadia and at Nellie Bay. And radar locations, one at my school, one out of the river, Anoomba and Alligator Creek Meat Works area. So that was that sort of data that you see there, the 288, and one at Horseshoe Bay on Magnetic Island. Might be hard to see this, but you'll see the little circly things. They are American 50 caliber machine gun positions in August 1942, sort of around Garbutt Airfield. And in the harbour, this is a modern picture, of course, but in the harbour area, there were these 50 and 30mm caliber locations on the western border, and 50 caliber there. And of course, not shown because it's a modern photo, was that reclaimed area, which later on, they had those 40-metre Bofors in 43. The Americans had a, I guess, modern technology for its time. They had things called sound locators, an M2 sound locator, which they move up and down and side to side to look the strongest signal. And they were actually mechanically and electromagnetically linked to either a searchlight, I think mainly searchlights, but could be linked to guns if they had. And they also have a system whereby for time operation, mostly I'd imagine, they would couple a searchlight to these binoculars, whereas the person tracked the Japanese aircraft and the searchlight, so it's nighttime obviously, because it's a searchlight. They would follow the Japanese aircraft as the fellow moved his binoculars around. Searchlights, the 94th Coast Artillery, they had 5 searchlights, to Townsville, September 42. 2nd Platoon Headquarters and 4th Section went over to the island after the 2/8th moved out. One searchlight set itself up near the start of the Shoe Bay Key and kept moving it around until they ended up at the end of the jet. And the other 3 sections scattered around the island, possibly at the same locations that the 208 pairs when they were there, as per that earlier map. Australian Army 209th arrived in April 42. They had no tents, no water, no amenities. Reported to the American battery commander. As I said, the Yanks were in charge of all defence guns, anti-aircraft guns in Townsville at that point in time. And then they moved to, the 2nd 9th moved to Garbutt Airfield to provide light anti-aircraft defence for the airfield. And they were later relieved by the 32nd Light Anti-Aircraft. I just skip over that. So air raid precautions. The chief air raid warden, for the Tool area was Mr. James C. Butler. Dr. Les Halberstad, who was my doctor when I was a little boy, the government medical officer. He was heavily involved in air raid precautions arrangements. There were 900 ARP wardens in Townsville in January 42, and then that built up to 1,200 by March 42, so it built up pretty quick. They divided their responsibilities into zones. Each zone had its own casualty clearing station or first aid post, and there were eventually 103 air raid posts created Townsville area. So there's an air raid siren. A bit of info there on the different sort of sounds that came out of them. I'll skip over that, I think. Lots of air raid shelters in the Townsville area. This is one in the middle of the main street. For those who are in Townsville, there's the old Carroll's shops. I used to go to school with the Rush family who owned Carroll's, and where that radio tower is now is where DJ's was, McKimmons, I think it was before that, and now I think it's the Cowboys Club in Townsville. So they were known as Lynn's Hideouts, Hanlon being the premier at the time. They held a blackout trial in all the eastern states on 7th of February 42, witnessed by 7 officers of the 33rd Australian Army Battalion from Castle Hill. It was only partially successful. Harbour lights were left on for about 20 minutes after the sirens sounded, and 12 other IVID lights stayed on across the city, and the lighthouse beacons at Cleveland and Bay Rock also stayed on. Nice big beacons for the Japanese to home in on. 3 air raids. So this is the last bit I might talk about the Japanese air raids. There were many conflicting and confusing records about the 3 air raids. I think I've got it down pat, I think. One reference even suggested there were 4 air raids. There was confusion about the number and the type of aircraft, and also the number of bombs dropped. It's also confusing when you look at all the official records, because each unit, some of them operated in Zulu time, Greenwich Mean Time, some operated in Kilo time, the local time, which was Zulu time plus 10 hours. So it's hard to sort it all out. So this is the headlines from the day after the first Japanese air raid on us on the 25th, 26th of July. It says there were 4 planes. Don't believe what you read in the paper. There were only actually 2 Japanese aircraft, not 4. So there were 2 large flying boats, 2 Emily flying boats, and that's their serial numbers, W45, W46, piloted by Lieutenant Asan Mizukuru, who left Rabaul before 18 p.m. on the Saturday, the 12th of July. Our number 1 wireless unit, whose job was to monitor Japanese traffic, monitoring the katakana code basically, and capture that, handed back to the code breakers at 21 Henry Street in Brisbane. It's Central Bureau. They heard the transmissions as those 2 flying boats took off, and they were operating out of French Street at Pimlico at that stage. They notified the local RAAF station there at Garbutt to say, hey, lock on this Morse code transmission from these aircraft that had just taken off Rabaul, so they could track them. So the initial transmission started with the name of their base, which was Rabaul, and the call sign for their aircraft. 1 wireless unit was able to identify their base. The next message that they sent out was, can you hear me, and what's our strength? And that was in the katakana Morse code. Initially, the wireless unit guys thought they were going to head towards Thorsby or Milne Bay for an air raid, but turns out they realised they weren't headed that way. Rabaul at that time was the headquarters for the 14th Yokosuka Air Group and their very large 4-engined H8K2 Kawanishi Emily flying boats operating there. And they were the ones that did the 3 ads on Townsville during World War II. So the DF stations, the one at Garbutt and the others that I mentioned earlier, were able to monitor stronger signals, and they various plots, and those indicated that these craft were on their way to Townsville. That seemed to be where they were headed. They advised the operations group at sector headquarters and told that they estimated the Japanese would arrive at 11 p.m. over Townsville. However, those at operations group didn't trust these DF guys, these direct finding guys who spin little reels around. They were going to take more notice of the radar missions, so that was a little bit of delay as these DF guys were all working in conjunction with 1 wireless unit. So enemy aircraft arrived from northeast over Townsville at 11:30, unopposed. And the city lights all blazing, circled the town for 30 minutes, and then flew out to Cape Cleveland, out to the north. After searchlights had illuminated the 208 Coast Artillery Regiment were not used. Orders from the Air Defence Commander for some reason. Apparently he got into trouble the next day. The 2 Japanese flying boats returned again over Townsville at 12:40 a.m. and dropped a string of 15 250-kilogram bombs 400 yards east of the oil tanks in the harbour area near Townsville. So a bit of a close call for the tanks and for the ships in the harbour. There were reports from one unit on the ground that they only saw 6 bombs, but official records indicate 15. Some Royal Australian ships were in harbour at the time. HMS Swan, Burwa and Dunn. 1 wireless unit there at Pimlico continued to monitor the Morse code from the Japanese aircraft and monitored them landing at Rabaul at 12 minutes past 7 on Sunday the 26th of July. So the guys sort of knew what was happening right from the get-go. Those bombs dropped roughly there for those in the Townsville area, so pretty close to the oil tanks. You can see to the west and near the mouth of the Ross River. So this is a creek, and this is the harbour area. So 15 bombs dropped area just there. Depending on the tide, when the tide was out, they found 4 craters, and they also found 1 unexploded bomb. And you can see them there probing for unexploded bombs in the shallow water there. And that's probably sort of more or less just Cape Cleveland and be over to the left of that shot there. The late Bob Harper book indicated there were 2 aircraft, still many other records. 3 fighter sector headquarters themselves actually reported 5 enemy aircraft approaching from the north-northeast in one of those. The American Coastal Land Aircraft Regiment, they said there were 3, and the 51st Battalion War Diary said there were 3, but the Japanese records and the 1 wireless intercepts clearly indicate 2. Civil Defence Headquarters reported that a Captain Scott, who reckoned he had 2 flights of 3 craft, so he reckoned there were 6. So confusion was supreme. That's the unexploded bomb that was recovered, the first Japanese radar council. The tail fins and that removed. The nose fuse made safe. That's a Type 98, number 25 lead bomb, classed as a 250 kilogram. It's actually weighs in that condition just there, 238 kilos. Second raid was not that long later, on the overnight of the 27th and the 28th of July. There was only 1 aircraft left for ball on the 27th in the afternoon. Again, number 1 Wildland Boys detected radio commission and provided 7 hours notice to fighter sector headquarters. Lieutenant Dakuru was detected by 104 radar kissing point. That was 50 minutes before he arrived over the and the Coast Guard radar at Horseshoe Bay on Nick Island detected the aircraft 22.5 miles, and their slights illuminated the aircraft off the northern end of Medic Island. What is happening? There we go. 6 American P-9 Aircobras from the 8th Fighter took off from Garbutt Airfield. And the 3 batches of the 208th Coast Artillery Regiment fired 72 rounds at heights from 14,000 to 10,200 feet for a minute at the enemy aircraft. And 2 Australian heavy aircraft sites also fire. All of that thing, all hell broke loose, all of that with all that flak around, didn't allow those 6 Aircobras to attack the Japanese aircraft. So those aircraft dropped 8 250 kilogram bombs from 15,000 feet at 2:25 a.m. on Many Peaks Range, which I'll just show you where that is. So north is at the top here. This is over to the right is Paloranda, Magnetic Island, sort of over here to the northeast. South, just off the bottom of the picture, is where the Garbutt Airfield is. So it's too far from Garbutt Airfield, probably a few miles from the end of the old runway. And there's 2 ranges, a bit hard to see. There's a big range here called, with Mount Marlow, the highest range where the big radar is today, the big white ball that you see in Landon Townsville. And then that hill, that big long range stops about here. Then there's a valley, and then there's another small range. The bombs dropped on the southern side of Many Peaks Range, this range here. During the war, in this little valley, flat area here, like a salt pan, there was a minefield in case the Japanese landed on this side to attack the airfield. So there were 7 craters found and 1 unexploded bomb. And one interesting fact, there's a little fishing shack just in here where a family lived, and I just can't remember the family's name. And son and his father were first on the scene here. They found the unexploded bomb. And the interesting fact is, and I haven't published this, is that that unexploded bomb had English writing on it. You know how you paint on the, here's one for you, Tojo. Well, it had something like that written on it. Here's one for you, Tojo. So have a think about that. So those come from Rabaul. So who was based at Rabaul prior to the Japs arriving? So that was 24 Squadron, RAAF. So that could have been one of their bombs that they've adapted and then dropped on Townsville. But anyway, that's the story he told me. I've got it on tape. So there's a number of photos I got from one of the bomb disposal RAAF guys. Again, I don't think these photos have seen the light of day before. It's a guy standing in one of the craters. That's the first crater. There's the second crater with someone standing in the crater. That's the third crater, or what they've labelled the third crater, the fourth crater, sixth crater. And there's some flak that's held at the RAF Heritage Centre. Quite a large bit of flak, shrapnel, should I say, not flak. Many Peaks Range, held by Bill Wallace there a number of years ago. The third raise, again, the next night, more or less, on the night of the 28th, 29th of July. This time it was 2 flying bases, W37, W47, after a ball, and 4 or 5 p.m. One of them had to return after an hour with mechanical problems, and W47 arrived over Townsville just 27 minutes after midnight at 20,000 feet. 4 P-39s took off, probably from anthill planes, or they actually might have redeployed them, I think, after that first air raid. And 2 P-39s, 6 simultaneous attacks on the heavily flying boat. A brief fire was sighted in the rear of the flying boat. It was coned by 10 searchlights. The pilot, Kingo Shoji, managed to evade the searchlight and dropped 8 250-kilogram bombs. 7 of those bombs landed in Cleveland Bay between the harbour and Attic Island, and 1 bomb landed at the Enumba experimental station in Townsville. I'll show you where that was shortly. And radared that Japanese aircraft for 130 kilometres out to sea. So 7 bombs dropped somewhere. I don't know exactly where. I've just put a spot here in the between the port here and Picnic Bay, if you like, on Magnetic Island. The single bomb landed here at Enumba at the experimental farm, and it damaged a coconut tree. That was the only damage from any of the raids, in fact. So that's Enumba from the 3rd Japanese raid. Some Australian Army guys for some shrapnel with all the Onkers. Another shot, same hole in the ground. And that car there is owned by James, the guy that said was in charge of the Chief Air Raid Warden. Now that's his daughter, Joan Butler. She was our neighbour in Townsville and Hagues, Pimlico. She became Jim Burke. Her husband, the secretary of Treb, back in those days. So that's at the November, and that's the damage from the 3 air raid in Townsville for coconut tree. There's a very innocuous small stone with an innocuous small plaque beside a way by the road about 300 metres away from where that crater is. And back in February 1999, when I was up there work visit, there's Norqueb or Ergon. I made touch with Stephen Johnson, who was then the manager of the Enumba Veterinary Lab, and he took me to the site of the crater, which is still there. And a few years ago, it was there, and they were looking to preserve it in the middle of a big housing development. So I don't know whether it still exists or not, whether they did manage to preserve it. Japanese crew from one of the flying boats reported, the flying boat from the third raid reported back and said we hit more than 10 times. We were hit more than 10 times by 2 hurricanes, not P-39s. We dropped 3 bombs near a drone, causing 3 fires and 5 more on the city. Dropped 5 more bombs on the city, igniting 2 more fires. So according to them, they did a heck of a lot of damage. Tokyo Rose, she did some broadcasts on the 1st and the 2nd August 1942, and she made the comment that all important military installations at Townsville were smashed in 3 raids by the Japanese Navy units. On the 25th of July, airfields, oil tanks, shipping and supply dumps were raided. 28th of July, airfields, tanks and supply dumps were attacked. And on the 29th, the remaining military installations were bombed. This attack on Townsville was one of the heaviest since the fall of Singapore. So quite a lot of exaggeration. We're nearly finished, folks. Radio Berlin on the 26th of August, they reported in Townsville, which is burning. The Brisbane railway line was again bombed, made unusable over long stretches. Radio Berlin on the 6th of September, the government of Queensland has decided to evacuate Townsville, which, as is well known, has been subject to particularly violent Japanese raid. This is all part of the propaganda. So just a bit of an overview where the 3 raids were. Raid number 1 dropped them near the harbour here, near those oil tanks. Raid number 2 was just north of the airfield. There's the airfield there, I think, the modern day airfield. So up here west of Aloranda. And raid 3, 7 bombs in the drink and 1 bomb over here at that research institute place in November. And that's the end of my talk. Now, you might like to, if you can, all unmute your microphones, as I'm not sure. Oh, hang on, I think if I stop the share, I should be able to do that.
I'm unmuted.
Yep,
Yeah, okay.
I'm unmuted.
Righto.
Yep, I'm muted.
Great talk, Peter.
I think most people are unmuted now.
Yeah, right.
So, were you all able to hear me relatively?
It's good.
Been so gravelly most of the time. About 10% of the time the voice is nice and clear and very good, but then it'd be gravelly most of the time.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is a possible, instead of using the Bluetooth earphones, to use a plug-in one, because I've had that situation before. And when you use a plug-in one, you don't get that problem.
Yeah, I suspect it's my internet speed, but yeah, I'll try that. I've probably got a plug-in one somewhere. But so we've still got, a few people have now dropped off. Yep. So we've still got 38 people online, 37. So
I think we've proven the concept. It just needs to be tailored.
I had a quick count at about 7:35, and at that time there were 54 people shown as being in it.
Yeah.
It slowly dropped off. One down from, I think it was 48, Peter, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it slowly dropped off where people found, well, maybe I'm not so interested in this. But I think there's a lot of people up there, like example, Robert, Smith, Norm, Jeff, Mr. Potter, who have got their videos on, and I don't see much point in that. That might be using more bandwidth than we need to do. Anybody who was watching probably would have noticed that I had, I took mine off after a while because it was pointless people looking at me, which they probably weren't anyway, but just a thought, it might have helped, a bit with the audio.
Yeah.
I turned mine off too halfway through.
Yeah, that's what I did too. So I think that's probably a good idea. I got a lot of pictures of the tops of people's heads, their light bulbs on the ceiling, because people who were using items kept sort of wandering them around a little bit. I think unless somebody has a decent conversation to make, like now, the audio, the videos, individual videos could be off.
Yeah, I was just trying to work out. I can certainly mute everybody at once, and I can unmute, but I don't think I can turn everyone's cameras off.
I just think we all need to learn. This is our first time.
Yeah.
I only learnt about the space bar by wandering around the screen pushing buttons.
And you found that unmuted.
Yeah, you can. You press the space bar, say something, release the space bar, and your audio only comes on as you speak and off as you release.
There's a little icon in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen which has got mute, and then you can unmute. Just click on that little logo.
Yeah,
takes the sound off.
Yeah.
Peter.
I'm on an iPad and I don't have a space bar.
Yeah.
You can just slide the screen across.
Oh, okay.
Try that.
I'm not sure if it's working or not.
Yeah,
when I say spacebar, I specifically meant on my laptop. I don't use iPads or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm using on a PC, and I found too that if you press the space bar when you're otherwise muted, then it'll unmute it while you press the space bar. Also, regarding the video pictures, it's important that you've got light in front of you and less light behind you. Otherwise, I see some people are almost just selected very little light in their faces.
Yeah, Peter.
Yeah.
You considered maybe setting this up again for next month for another talk?
Yeah, we're going to try, yeah. Yeah, we
now
will.
It seems to work so well, yeah?
Yeah, we will. And I've got a portable Wi-Fi hotspot. I probably should have connected to that tonight, a Telstra one. So I might try that with a few test calls in between now and next month, and that might solve that bandwidth problem. Because my NDLs occasionally get pretty slow sometimes, and it was running very slow early tonight.
I think we may wind up with this sort of problem for a little while yet, while COVID-19 wreaks its havoc.
Everyone's online. Yeah, that's right. So,
I felt it was very well done. Very well done, Peter.
Thank you.
I've sat in on a few webinars, as you probably ascertain, and I think you've done a brilliant job, especially your first go. The only problem was the sound, but other than that, it was brilliant.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I think it showed Peter's, I hate to use the word control, but at least understanding of the system. I thought a lot of the stuff that was being done there just blew me away. And if we learn it, we'll be okay too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and apparently...
one question.
Yep.
One question, if I can. Is this the software a shareware, or do you have to hold an account?
Okay, if everyone else can be quiet for a little while. So this is called Zoom software, as you know. There are a number of different types of accounts. I'll just talk about the bottom two types of accounts, because I think they're the ones that would be of interest. There is a free account, which lets you connect up to 100 people. You know, we could have 100 tonight as well if there were 100 wanting to get on, but it only lets you go 40 minutes. So you'd have to disconnect and then log on, and everyone would have to log on. And as you realise from the start of tonight, you know, it took took us 10 minutes on to settle down, let everyone work out what they're doing and their chat and whatever. So you're really only going to get 30 minutes. We opted to spend the money to buy a registered account, and that costs Australian dollars, $20.99 plus tax per month. Being used to the stuff, I did a Google search. I don't know who's making all that noise.
Lots of feedback.
It's me.
Nev Allen. Yeah, Nev Allen's got some soundtrack noise, I think, interfering with it. Needs to turn his volume off.
Nev, can you, if you know how to do it, down the left, you mute your microphone.
Bottom left corner.
Bottom left corner. Is he still on?
I can't hear him anymore, so I think he might have muted himself.
Yeah.
I know he's still there. I'll mute him. Now I've got him. Right. Down so the $12.99 plus tax is the price for what they call the Pro version. So that we talk unlimited, not limited 3 minutes. You can talk all day if you want to, and you can have up to 100 participants. You can also record the session, which I'm recording. I'm still recording our end. I did a Google search and did a search for coupon discount Zoom, and I found a coupon, some letter numbers you type in to get a discount. So I got it for $18.47, including tax. So it's compared to 21, more or less $21 plus tax, over $18.47, including tax. So that's what we're currently paying a month. We'll probably only keep paying that for the duration of the COVID-19 thing while we have these sort of sessions. So it's not a lot of money. I think it's a good investment to help keep our members engaged. They get a bigger community, because we've got AHSA, Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria tonight. And because this talk centred on RAAF, I also invited from John Meyer, Air Commodore John Meyer, down. So I don't think John logged on. Plus, we got Fredericks, Martin James is logged on, who is the RAF historian. Wing Commander Lee Collins, Andrew Chadwick logged in from Townsville, Squadron Leader Chadwick, and Wing Commander David Glorian. I don't know whether David logged on or not. Some people, when they log on, they don't have their full name. It just has the name of their device. So it's a bit hard to tell.
He's at Wagga, I believe.
Sorry?
Wing Commander Glorian, I think, is at Wagga.
You're in Canberra.
He's in Canberra. There, you're on. You are on.
Oh, Canberra. Beg your pardon. Yes, he used to live in Wagga.
So, David, what did you think of the presentation, not from a point of view of the technology?
Very good. It was great to see a new piece of technology used so well. So, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. David, by the way, is writing a book on RAAF intelligence. And when's the book cut, David?
If they'd stop having things like bushfires and COVID-19, I'd actually be able to work on it rather than being at work.
Fair enough.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay.
We've got anybody from Victoria or New South Wales on the line at the moment?
Yes, it's me, Robert van Werkum. Most enjoyable tonight, and certainly the technology is working very fine. I had the privilege of having a pre-session with Peter on Thursday night just to make sure it was all working, but we certainly appreciated being able to tune in. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks for coming.
Very appreciate being part of this.
Okay, if anyone will drop off, by all means, drop off. For those who want to keep talking, I'm happy to stay online for all.
Hello, Tom.
I see we're down to 24 now.
So I heard a rumour that there's a new AHSA group being started in Tasmania. But what I did find out, wait till I just do a share here, I'll share the screen. What I did find when I did a search and asked a few people, there is a Tasmanian Aviation Historical Society. There's their website. Can you see that?
Yes.
Were you guys aware of that in Victoria?
No.
I've heard of it.
No.
Okay. They also have a web page. That's their web page. And that's their foot page. Tasmanian Aviation Historical Society.
Peter, we're just seeing a picture of you beside the Spitfire.
Okay, hang on, I'll take it back to the other screen where it used to be. Other screens. I got two screens and I moved it and to the other screen. That's their website.
Interesting.
Facebook, yeah.
And their Facebook page. So it might be worth someone from Victoria contacting them to say hello. How are you?
Right.
By the way, can I say hello, Tom? To Tom
Yeah. Yeah. Can I say hello to Bob Livingston and Peter Dunn and Phil Faber and Dion Malinowski, and just thank them for their help over the last couple of weeks, or a couple of years actually, with the Darwin to Adelaide flight. It's been really, really great. And this is a wonderful method of communication, which we'll have to use a bit more. Dion, I want to talk to you, but later on. Anyway, good to meet you all.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Sorry, I just thought I'd show you. Go on.
I was one of the people at the big dinner up at Caboolture.
Yeah, who's that?
Warwick Henry, just saying I was one at the dinner, and it was good.
Yeah, it was excellent. It was an excellent night.
Yeah, it's absolutely marvellous.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, in fact. And Tavis, I mean, that is mind-blowing. And you got to have a talk from Andrew on Tavis. It's I'm still reeling from the shock.
We've had two talks from Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew did a wonderful job of showing us around all these incredible planes. I was just gobsmacked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was dazed. I mean, had to go up and read up interrupter gears and all sorts of things again because he blew my mind on it. Yeah.
It's a pity that the rain just before the show meant that we didn't see the sea bear and the other aircraft on display.
Yeah, it was parked a bit away. Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah, we did pretty well. We got right through to the Sunday without being interrupted too much by COVID, and then Monday was a complete wipe-off. But Caboolture was certainly a highlight.
It was wonderful.
Did
you
anyway,
ever get
look, Peter, you've inspired me. I might try and put together one of these shows on the flight and do it, because a lot of people might be interested, I think. Yeah.
Did you ever get to Caloundra?
I did, yeah. We ducked down there for about an hour and drilled. It's got to be done. Got to be more of it. Got interested in the air truck and the Dove and a couple of things that hadn't seen before. But yeah, we saw about 9 museums, all different, all wonderful. I mean, the museum field is very strong, and they're holding on, and given a generation, I think they'll be national treasures. And Tavis definitely is now.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. Yeah, we just got to hold on. Okay,
Thanks, Tom.
but Peter, that was brilliant technology. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Don't know what Red Dolphin Systems are doing, but still.
Can you see that map I've got there?
Yeah, what's it about?
That's the electricity market. So that's the wholesale price of electricity at the moment, and that's the direction of flow. So it's flowing out of Queensland,
Out to Tasmania.
We're the cheapest at the moment. We're the cheapest at the moment. Yeah, we usually do export. Well, not a lot at the moment. That's the Terranora there, and that's the main link, and it's only got 1 bloody megawatt on it. So, yeah.
You Queenslanders seriously reckon you'll be able to keep New South Wales people out with all the borders you got?
We have so far.
Yeah, but what about Gundawindi, you know, what about out there?
Yeah, exactly. What a lot of nonsense.
Oh, well.
Coolangatta and Tweed Heads is so much an integrated society. They should
exactly. How many, you know. Anyway, good luck to you. Yeah.
All right, Tom. Thanks. Good to see you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I'll say good night.
absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Peter.
Well done.
Thank you.
No worries.
Peter, well done.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Peter.
Thank you all.
Yeah. See you later. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks,
See ya.
Peter. Bye.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye, Mary.
See you.
Bye.
Hey, Ross Gary, get going, mate.
Bye,
Pretty
guys.
good, Peter. Well done.
Bye.
I have to get back up to Townsville and see some more stuff.
Yeah. Brisbane too,
No.
mate.
Well done. Well researched. I miss Queensland.
Lovely weather we've got here.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks,
Peter.
Peter.
Yeah.
We should do this more often as a. I think sort of Dion put a note in there. Out of this crisis may come a bit of a more national society, and maybe have one of these every now and then. We see some really good stuff in Queensland, some great talks in New South Wales, great talks in Victoria.
I think we all get good benefits out of this, you know, for a bit of value for money, if you like, for our members as well, you know.
Yeah.
Well, New South Wales is shut down till August, so it gives it a couple of months.
Yeah, I think we should keep.
Excellent. There's so many excellent presentations been given over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I'll look at some of the programs because Peter, you still send me the Queensland agenda, and I see the stuff on in New South Wales, and there's some fantastic talks on. And being in Victoria, I mean, you can't be in sort of 3 places at once, so it's a good forum.
Yeah, it's pretty.
But you can also have the webinar and the actual people showing up at the meeting, so you can do it duo.
Yeah, do both. Yeah, that's reminds me of something.
Do
Mary.
both.
The other bit of software that we've been using for those who are on board is software called Google Duo. We use that on Wednesday to hold our management committee meeting, and it's video conferencing software. So we did use it, worked brilliantly. So we've decided that we will hold.
It's a freebie.
Yeah, it's a freebie.
It's free.
And we've decided to use it for every management meeting from now on, rather than having to travel somewhere for a small meeting. We can do it just sitting and walking through the park or wherever the heck you are with your mobile phone.
It's also very useful for people who live a reasonable distance away from, where the meeting is. It takes me an hour plus to get to the meeting and an hour to get home again. So that's 2 hours I don't lose.
Yep, that's right.
And also it saves the environment and petrol and pollution and everything. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
And we, at one of the ones I went to, they had someone who logged in from India. He used to come to the meetings and he was overseas. I mean, he had to stay up to some ridiculous hour, but you can get people from all over the world logging into your meetings.
Yeah, we are international.
Yeah, well, I did it. I did invite 1 or 2 people from overseas, but I don't think they joined. Of course, of the time zones, they'd be asleep. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks,
Anyway,
everyone.
Bob, first time I've met you. Hi, Bob. Can you see me? This is amazing.
Yeah.
It is.
Hey,
And
Livo,
Darren.
long time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'll leave you.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, bye then.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Right, all gone as soon as I can find the next.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'm leaving it. Anyway, bye-bye. Done. Well done.
Yeah. I'm just reading the chat comments here and see what I was talking. Hey, Charles Page, how you going? Bye. Hang on, how do I stop the